So as we move from a reactive, responsive approach at the beginning of the year to more of a preventative and proactive approach, we identify kids through our data systems, our building meetings, who may need something more systematic in their day in implementing some of these strategies. Our hopes is that the students learn how to more independently use some strategies when they are having a difficult social, emotional, or behavioral experience.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Brighter Together podcast. My name is Janet Courtney, and my guest today is Tate Schoeberlein. Tate is the Student Supports Coordinator at Stillwater Public Schools in Stillwater, Minnesota. Tate, thanks so much for being here today.
Thanks for having me.
So tell us a little bit about what's going on and your role at Stillwater Public Schools.
Yeah, well, as many of your guests and many people in education, I tend to wear a lot of hats, and I guess a lot of things fall under like a coordinator role of sorts. Well, I've been here. Historically, I've been a special education teacher. That's my licensure area. And for the last decade, I've been working as either behavior specialist or a coordinator, focusing on special education, but also assisting and working with students who demonstrate needs in the domains of social, emotional, and behavioral functioning.
And it's become a huge need, hasn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's probably the number one topic in education right now, and it's not easy.
No, it's not easy. It is definitely not easy. But it sounds like you guys are doing some amazing things with the green room and the implementation. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so Stillwater Schools is a district of about, I don't know the exact figures, but I'm just going to say around 10,000 students, maybe a little bit more. We have 7 elementary schools, and approximately 8 years ago, we adopted some ideas and implemented them in something we call a green room. And those notions were to provide services and strategies to help students who may have increased needs in their social, emotional, and behavioral functioning. If you're familiar with the MTSS system, our multi-tiered system of supports, it fluidly fits into the tiered system there to assist with learners that are eventually identified as needing tier 2 and tier 3 supports.
Gotcha.
And so our green rooms are outfitted with 3 basic strategies that we implement for all students. So this is really a regular education initiative. And as with all regular ed initiatives, special education students also benefit and have access to the green rooms. So we have them in every building in our elementary, 7 buildings. And the main strategies that we offer are movement breaks for students who just require more movement. We also offer calming breaks for kids who have an emotional situation that may need time away from the peer group, and some assistance through a mentor or a green room specialist who runs the space. And then third, we provide problem solving or restorative practices in the green room where maybe the community's been harmed, there's been disagreement between students, maybe there's a student who's having a really difficult time in classroom, and we work to develop solutions to those problems, repair the community, and get kids back into learning. Those are our main 3. And as you can imagine, we have a goal. At the beginning of the year, we end up sending people to these strategies in more of a reactive fashion as we learn our students in our classes, and we see where kids are having additional needs in those domains of social, emotional, and behavioral learning. And our hopes and our desire is that throughout the year, we start to move from a more reactive side, our responsive side, to a more preventative and proactive side of things.
Nice.
And so we're taking data for every student who comes down, no matter what the purpose is. We have systems of how this works. So if a kid came down for movement, we set them up for 10 minutes of movement, which there's tons of research that that duration of movement can increase attention, reduce stress, and actually increase retention of what is being learned. And so we do a 10-minute there, followed by 3 minutes of calming. And not every kid requires the full 10 minutes and so forth. So there are systems to keep our kids at a minimum time here to get them back into learning. So as we move from a reactive or responsive approach at the beginning of the year to more of a preventative and proactive approach, we identify kids through our data systems, our building meetings, who may need something more systematic in their day in implementing some of these strategies. Our hopes is that the students learn how to more independently use some strategies when they are having a difficult social, emotional, or behavioral experience.
Wow, that's great.
Yeah, so our teams work to look at our data that we take, and we have really great data, and we can break it down through a variety of analytical lenses. And as they look at that data, they identify kids, not just that data, but a variety of data we're taking in our schools, and identify kids who need a more systematic and structured, proactive approach. And so we put those students on a couple different strategy systems. One is proactive scheduled movement breaks, where an example might be this. Some of our students go out for recess, and when they come back in, they just, have a difficult time getting their nervous system to kind of come back to that regulated state where they can tune into learning and participate and engage in activities within the classroom. So that's just one example, is that you come in from recess and then you'll come down here for a calming break before we head into the classroom.
Transitions, right? Yeah,
transitions, exactly, to some of those transitions. And sometimes that's been a difficult transition in coming in from mom's car to the school building there today. And this makes it kind of a scaffolded transition approach. Or maybe with like a literacy block, which research is showing that these literacy blocks are best if they're, an hour plus long. And some of our students may struggle with that. So what we may do as a team with our a multidisciplinary team with school psychologist, social worker, the educator, the principal, and the green room specialist, we determine, hey, 15 minutes before we go into literacy block, we're going to do a movement break followed by some calming and get you into learning, so that we're not taking you out of core instructional time, but we're mindfully implementing a strategy to hopefully assist you in what I was saying earlier, is attentiveness, increase retention, and reduce stress, so that you can better learn and the teacher can better teach and the other students can better learn.
Wow, that is incredible. Go ahead. No, please. Keep going.
The other part that we do when we try to get somebody on a proactive scheduled system is that we also will implement check-in, check-out, which I'm sure you're familiar with. It is a research-based strategy using the charts and so forth. And our green rooms specialists then become the check-in, check-out mentor in the morning, sometimes midway through the day, and then also at the end of the day for the checkout. And we really pump kids up to have a great, successful day. At the end of the day, we really celebrate their successes. We problem solve about how we might address certain situations tomorrow when we return to school, etc. And then we house all the data from those sheets as well and share that with our multidisciplinary teams so that they can determine if we need to add or subtract goals on their daily charts, if we need to increase their daily percentage goal of how many points they're going to earn for whatever the individualized goals happen to be. And so on the front end, we have these three strategies: movement, calming, problem solving, and restorative work. Then we have these other more systematic and prescribed strategies for individualized students. So the three strategies on the front end, and by the way, kids can be sent down for reactive breaks throughout the school year. And what you know and what you see with students is that they may present differently over the course of a school year. So it might be really strong in September, October, November, but maybe something happens in their life, or maybe something's happening with their friend group or their peer group, or that changes things for them come December and January. Or some of my students just struggle with 9 full months of 5 days a week, and expectations of a school setting, socially, emotionally, behaviorally, academically, and intellectually.
Yeah. So your school has invested finances, space, talent, teachers.
Yeah.
I'm really, really impressed with what Stillwater is doing. So, you said all 7 of your elementary schools, 10,000 students. It just gives me chills. I'm so impressed with what you're doing, and kudos to you and to your team and to your administrators who have recognized, and probably your board who have recognized the need for this. So what has the outcomes been? How long have you guys been doing this, and what kind of outcomes have you seen?
Well, we piloted it about 8 years ago.
Oh, so it's been a while. Yeah.
Yeah, and that was just at one of our schools. And after a year or two of piloting it there, we decided to do exactly what you were saying and invest across all 7 elementary schools. Part of our approach here is to teach students strategies that they might use as they develop into adulthood that will help them with some of the social, emotional, and behavioral challenges that we all really face, to be honest.
Yeah.
One of the outcomes, more surface level, and I know that we always say, like, this is something for students, but as a coordinator, I realize and believe that it's really something for adults as well. We're supporting the educator. Before we got onto the podcast, you and I had been chatting, and you had mentioned something similar to this, and I really agreed with it, is that when you support the educator, you support the student.
Yes.
And I see this as a tier 2, tier 3 support for students to better learn, as well as the educators who are serving those students, so that those students can get needs met in that tier 2, tier 3 approach outside the classroom, just like reading intervention services, our math intervention.
Right. Yeah, we are addressing in the 21st century the social and the emotional and the psyche of our kids so much more, because we're so much more aware of, I've told this story before, but my grandmother's brother, he was the youngest. So I told you there was like nine kids in my grandmother's, on my dad's side. And she was like second or third, and he was the baby. So he was the oldest was in World War I and the youngest was in World War II. And he came back with PTSD. They didn't know what PTSD was back then. And he ended up being an alcoholic and just never really had a functional life, because it was his job was horrible, but now, we know, and we have so much more knowledge, and kids are given the tools. PTSD is a real thing, and we're getting better at dealing with that for our soldiers and our veterans. And, now it's carrying into education where it needs to be. Let's address it before it becomes an issue. And I love that so much. So, and it's not just the kids, as you said.
Yeah. It's supporting everybody. I mean, it's a really challenging time in education, and this social, emotional, and behavioral need seems to be at the top of everybody's thinking.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So the other thing that I wanted to say that was a result, and what we found,
please.
and I don't celebrate it this way, and I don't speak about it much this way, though I think a lot of people like to hear this, is first, the green rooms are never a space for punishment. We don't want kids to mix up a space and an environment and certain educators as being a place they get sent for being bad.
Right.
Instead, we want it to be preventative and proactive in
Great
that
point.
we are carrying out strategies to help meet kids' needs that we see in 2025 and coming up to 2026.
Yeah, and they don't make that connect. They don't think about, little kids don't think about, well, exactly what you said is like, we're using this and this is a strategy. They don't think that way. They experience life, and we want to help them to experience life in a way and school in a way that helps them. And I've said this before too, is kids don't do things because they want to be bad. That's not who they are. They are reacting to something that is happening in their environment, in their psyche, and whatever is going on, and it manifests, right? So I love that you recognize and are, because it's so important that they, I wish I'd have had it, it's like one of those things where it's like, I want to go and hang out in your green room.
Well, and that's the thing that, can be confusing depending on when adults went to school, is that if you're leaving the classroom, it's usually back then was because it was punishment.
You get in trouble. Yeah. And you were in trouble. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
One of the other bits that I've tried to implement here is that because of some of the social, emotional, and behavioral needs, we see a higher rate of elopement from classrooms. And I don't think that's unique to our school district.
No.
It's everywhere. And so we've actually used the green room as a replacement behavior opportunity where we give kids who have been elopers a pass, or, a set amount of passes a day where they can elect to come to the green room, because now we're creating an opportunity to leave the classroom in a more structured way where we're implementing strategy rather than just walking out and roaming a school.
Right. And you have to have buy-in from all of your staff. So how has that gone?
Well, good. I wanted to say one more thing, and
Sure.
then I'll talk about the buy-in and how we've somewhat achieved that. Is that the thing that people like to hear that I don't speak much about is that you asked about the outcomes. And to me, the biggest outcome is that the green rooms have been an opportunity to be an alternative to discipline.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And what we saw was, after implementing the green rooms, we saw our office referrals go down significantly. For example, in one of our buildings, we were in the 700 range of office referrals in a school year. And after implementing the green room, we were below 200 office referrals because our staff were dealing with things that didn't necessarily rise to the administrative level.
Wow.
They could be solved by somebody other than the educator who's attempting to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And not to say that educators aren't doing problem solving in little restorative conferences as well, but some of those just become too big to both be teaching and addressing. And that's where we come in.
Yeah. When you have 15, 20, 25, 30 kids in your classroom and you don't always have time. And that's impressive. That's great.
We're about 25 to 30 kids in our district.
Yeah, I was just guessing. It's like, who knows? It can be any number depending on how the school's set up. But yeah, and not having to deal with, and having a way to deal with them. You're empowering your teachers to be able to handle and giving them the tools to be able to redirect in a way that's positive for these kids. So
yes.
Yeah. It's fantastic.
Exactly. So how do we get buy-in?
Mm-hmm.
Well, somewhat the numbers speak for themselves when you hear about the reduced discipline, reduced office referrals. People hear that and they kind of look like you, like, oh, you kind of got this surprising, like, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Furthermore, the educators themselves are just managing a much higher ratio of students coming in with these social, emotional, behavioral challenges. And it's very easily recognizable that something needs to happen. I like to say that I made, for 25 years, I was an EBD teacher, and I
Tell people what an EBD teacher is, because not everybody knows.
Students with emotional behavioral disorders. It could be mental health. It's a large umbrella.
Yeah.
It could be trauma. It could be a lot of things. But struggle in the same domains
Mm-hmm.
with social, emotional, behavioral functioning. And I was always pounding tables like this should be for everybody.
Right.
And then at the advent of social, emotional, I always add behavioral learning. I was like, finally, it's
Yeah.
for everybody.
Right. Well, and you guys, one other thing I'd like to go back to is that 8 years. You guys were doing this before COVID.
Yeah.
You talk about 8 years, that's pre-COVID. This is 2025. So that's, you're talking about, if I do my math, that's 2017, right?
That's about right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's where I
Yeah.
think it started. And so the other bit of buy-in too is that we've shown how this data, it's really strong data that we're pulling here, and we can pull it up on any student, and it can be data that is included in determining if we need even greater supports than those offered that I described through the green room
Mm-hmm.
through a special education evaluation.
Yeah.
So when we follow as an organization this MTSS process, we see how
Mm-hmm.
this fits in, which creates buy-in. And
Mm-hmm.
one of the
Okay. Yep.
initiatives that myself and the specialists who run the green rooms have done is really try to align messaging throughout all of our elementaries. I can't remember, but we have like a 60-some page manual that describes everything about the green room, the processes, how we use it. It's not a punishment,
Right.
etc. It's not a place that you house a kid because they got in trouble and don't get to go for recess or something like that.
Right. Right.
We also have, we've created Green Room at a Glance, which is just a front and back sheet that has all of the most important things for people to understand. So new educators to the district might use it as a cheat sheet, or you may make a copy and put it in your subfolder. So when a sub's here, they have
Mm-hmm.
a better understanding of how to utilize and access the Green Room for student need. And then we do trainings in all of our buildings within the first month where we go to faculty meetings.
Yeah.
We
Mm-hmm.
revisit it. We do that again, usually after winter break. And then we've been sending out like little reminders and so forth to like all building emails about tips and tricks. And this summer I've been working on a newspaper I'm calling the Green Room Times.
Nice.
It's just full of what we are calling pro tips on how
Right.
to utilize, access, and understand the green rooms. So set up like a newspaper, and we have about 6 issues in which we'll be pushing those out in the fall, just to get everybody back into the mindset of this is how it works. We're moving from reactive. These are strategies. We move from reactive or responsive to proactive. This is how our green room passes work. So we have a pass system where kids get the pass and then they come to the green room, etc.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Are you seeing I'm sure you are, but learning, this has got to be improving kids' abilities to learn and to be productive in their classrooms as well, I'm sure. I don't, I'm sure the data is showing that, but
So many variables go into increasing
yeah,
learning. And
yeah,
so often we might call this system or that system this magic wand or whatever, but
yeah,
I
it
go
doesn't
back,
exist. That
no,
doesn't exist. We know that.
are the educators in classrooms.
Yeah,
And I don't want to give all the credit to other things because if you were an educator that went through COVID, you stuck with something that was very challenging
yeah.
and you're the magic.
Mm-hmm.
But what I can say, because we have reading intervention, we have math intervention
Mm-hmm.
services, all that increase learning capacities. What I can say about this strategy approach through the green room is that what we are seeing is that it's meeting a lot of students' needs in that tier 2, somewhat tier 3 approach by helping them be more regulated in their emotions, remain in
Mm-hmm.
the classroom in a regulated state to increase access to the curriculum, to core instructional activities, and then repairing situations if they've been involved in something that caused the community harm
Yeah.
through
Mm-hmm.
an increase in many students who access the green room. Whereas, like you said, I sure wish this was around when I was going to school.
Right.
Because if this weren't here, what else would we be seeing?
Mm-hmm.
And as you can imagine, some of our students will not respond in the same favorable way. And those are strong indicators that something more is needed. And it
Right.
doesn't mean that the green room strategies go away.
No.
It just means that this student might need something more to help support their social, emotional, behavioral, academic needs.
Right. Right. Exactly. Well, Tate, you were worried about the 20 minutes. It's been 20 plus minutes. We've done really well. This has been an amazing conversation. I love talking about things that help kids, things that help educators, things that make a difference. And this is making a difference. And it is one of many things, we talk about these pieces, all of these pieces that put together that allow a child to be successful. And that's it's not, it takes a village, right? It takes a village to raise a child. And this is part of that. This is that piece of that village. And it's a great piece. So where should people go if they want to learn a little bit more about what you guys are doing, or if they have questions, because I'm sure this is an episode that people are going to go, oh, that's really neat. Let's, so I'd love to give you an opportunity to plug your school, but also to somebody else to look at what you're doing and help another child, right?
Yeah, well, we don't post like the manual online or anything, but they are welcome to reach out to Stillwater area public schools or Stillwater Public Schools now. They're welcome to contact me as well through my email. You have my email, so I don't know if you want to, or you're able to.
Well, is your email on your website? It might be.
It probably is. It might take a little digging to find my name. And as you said, and recognize my last name's a doozy to spell.
But it will be on, your name will be on, our final production. So the spelling will be there, and it's Stillwater, Stillwater Public Schools, and it's in Minnesota. So you Google search that. That's all you got to do, and you can find it. And I'm pretty sure, Tate, that you're on the website. So
yes, I am.
That way. Yeah.
And also, we have plenty of other districts who send staff out to spend a day in our green rooms to see how it works. And we're happy to share any of our materials with people who are interested. So you could get access to our manual. I could even give you access to our a blank data log that's already set up that
I love that about educators are so amazing that way. They, everybody that has something that's working that I've seen is so willing to share. It's like if there's something that you're doing in Minnesota that can help somebody in South Texas, that can help somebody in Northern Maine, to Florida, to wherever, Oregon, take your pick.
Yeah.
Everybody is just so willing to help each other because it's so important, and it's such a great thing. And it touches my soul to see the people that that we as educators, we serve. That's what we do. We serve people. We talked a little bit about that before, that we are serving our students in a way that's helping them and making an impact on the next generation. And you're making an impact. It's very clear. So
thank you.
Good for you guys.
Thanks. One last thing I want to say, which I already kind of said, is in 25 years of doing this work, there's no magic wands, but really the educators who put the magic into the initiatives that help us get to the root of the needs of kids.
Yeah. And if you're implementing something like this and it's a struggle, keep at it, because it's worth it. It's really worth it. Absolutely. Well, Tate, again, thank you so much for being on Brighter Together, because we really are brighter together.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me as well.